Welcome to the Crit House, everybody. I'm Jeff Larson, and today, again, we are talking about documentary photography, and we are doing it with the folks from the Social Documentary Network, because I don't know that much about documentary work, and so we brought in the experts, Lisa Dubois and Glenn Ruga, who are both with SDN. Lisa is a New York-based photojournalist. She is a curator, and she is also a member of Unfoco and a contributor to the Social Documentary Network and the Edge of Humanity magazine. Now, Glenn Ruga, who is on the upper left-hand side for us here, he is a photographer and graphic designer. He is a curator, and he is the founder of the Social Documentary Network. When he was a photographer, he worked in Bosnia, Kosovo, and on an immigrant community, a project on an immigrant community in Holyoke, Massachusetts. And previous to his work with SDN, Glenn was the executive director of the Photographic Resource Center in Boston. I do want to talk a little bit about SDN because I think it's a great resource for folks. When we're showing the images today, we're going to look at the SDN website. It is a community of documentary photographers and editors and curators from around the world who all believe in the power of visual storytelling. There have been over 4,000 documentary projects uploaded onto SDN from upwards of 3,000 photographers from all over the world. And it's just a great resource. And SDN is also the publisher of Zeke magazine. It is the magazine of global documentary, and I hope you all will all check it out. Now, today, the photographer we're going to take a look at is Margaret Ramirez. Welcome, Margaret. It's nice to have you.
Thank you.
Your project, which is fantastic, and I'm looking forward to both seeing it and talking about it, is Battling Beautifully and Boldly. And I wonder if maybe you can talk a little bit about yourself and about the project as well.
Sure. So first of all, thank you for having me. So I think to best explain this project, I need to give you a little background on myself. I've been in the beauty industry for over a decade. And for a very long time, although it's a fun, trendy, creative space, I always felt there was a void, a shallowness to it. And also it perpetuates this kind of negative body image that I always had a little bit of a struggle with. Fast forward to 2 years ago, 4 members of my family got diagnosed with cancer all within 2 months' time. And amongst them was my mom, which you are seeing in some of these images, and my cousin. My mom is 80 and my cousin in her early 30s. And after the original diagnosis that she met her oncologist, they went through a whole slew of information of what she was about to go through and what she was about to experience, what to expect. And at the end of that consult, the doctor turned to her and asked her, "Do you have any questions?" And to my amazement, her only one question was, "Will I look the same? Will I lose my hair?" It wasn't, how long do I have to live? Is this going to be hard? What am I in for? What is this going to do, as far as my age? It was really about her appearance, and that really kind of boggled me. It wasn't until her first chemo and a few days later that she really started to crash, that she, with very little energy, got up and took her little makeup bag that you saw in that first image and started to apply makeup. And I'm looking at her and I asked her, "Why are you doing this? Nobody's coming over and you're not feeling well. Why don't you just lay down and relax?" And she turned to me and told me, "This is how I fight. If I don't do this, I'm just giving into this disease. And this is how I feel normal." And it was at that very moment that I knew that this thing that I had viewed for so long as shallow and, a way of just presenting yourself as beautiful to the world was actually a tool to someone that was trying to capture her healthy self. And that's what really motivated me to try to document this in images. On the flip side was my cousin, who is much younger and going through the same experience. And her view of putting on makeup and trying to kind of keep her sexy was important to her. And I wanted to document that as well.
That's such a great summary of your project, and the work is lovely as well. Lisa, maybe we can start with you. So when you see this body of work, what's your reaction?
Well, my immediate thought when I see the project, to answer your question, is that how wonderful it was that they allowed her to actually document this. Because often when this tragedy is happening, people are so private. They don't, even if it's a family member, it's just that so that's my initial reaction, that they allowed her to do this, and it's so touching. I mean, it's just to me, I think she really told the story well. The transition from the mother and to the cousin is a little bit, I'm not sure, like I wasn't sure how that transition was happening in terms of how you're placing the photographs.
Glenn, what's your reaction and thoughts for Margaret on this body of work?
Well, I've always been attracted to this exhibit, Margaret, because I just love the photographic quality, the tonality, the composition, how you work with the black and white. And for me, that's where any project starts, is with the photography itself and how well that is handled. I agree with Lisa that combining these two stories into one project, for me, was confusing, and it helped to hear you talk about it tonight to kind of understand it better. But to look at the project on the SDN website, it was hard for me to understand really what these two different exhibits were, but now to hear you explain them, it's much clearer, and either somehow make that more clear in the gallery on SDN, or maybe just make two separate exhibits out of them.
That's what I was going to suggest. They're both so strong. I mean, the picture of your mother, like putting on a makeup, they're both so strong that they could be two separate exhibits. Absolutely. So I agree with Glenn on that for sure.
It's great, and it's funny, as you're talking about it, I was thinking about that, because they both have different stories, right?
Mhm.
So I mean, they have different experiences. It's almost like they should be two separate pieces.
Right, like if you saw a picture in the middle of the series where the two of them are together, or and then there's some explanation of what was going on, then there would be a transition from one to the other. But
Margaret, I want to let you react to that. What's your thought about making it two, or are we off base with that?
No, not at all. I think I honestly didn't think of it that way. I want to circle back to the last picture, because the last picture was interesting to me because at one point when she was in the hospital, she expressed that she would be okay with me taking pictures of her when she passed, as long as she looked beautiful. And unfortunately, she never told the rest of the family. So I really struggled with putting this picture in. I really struggled with taking the picture. I actually did it with an iPhone, because I didn't want to tell them that she had okayed it. And I also didn't want to walk into the funeral home with a camera and start photographing and be disrespectful. So I really struggled with that picture. As far as separating them into two different projects, I think that that's definitely an idea to digest and think about, because I'd never really thought about it that way. But I could definitely see, as you're going through each slide, how it could feel choppy. Like, what does this mean? How do I connect this?
You don't have any, do you have any photos of the two of them together?
I might. I have to look back. I'll be honest. It was even uploading it to the SDN website was difficult because I hadn't looked at it for a while.
Hmm.
And I have a hard time, not so much with my mom because she's pretty much doing well, but I was extremely close to my cousin, and she hid her illness very well, and always made us believe that she was going to bounce back. When she didn't, it was definitely a blow.
Hmm. I'm sorry.
But it's definitely worth going back and looking and seeing if I could find something that could connect it. If I decide to keep it together, or look for additional to separate it into two different bodies.
Glenn, what are the opportunities when you see a project like this for where it might live?
Well, the opportunities are online galleries like the SDN website. There are certainly others. Exhibitions. I don't know if you've done exhibitions or have spoken to anybody. It's hard to find exhibition space, whether galleries, museums are almost impossible. Private commercial galleries or public galleries, universities. But it's a place to develop more of a dialogue when you can talk to people and really meet people individually in a space where they can look at the prints. That has a very powerful effect. And then publishing, whether it's in magazines or the next step is a book. Each of those become increasingly more difficult to do, but people do them all the time. I think if you go to those steps, though, I think it would require to maybe make this a more long-term project rather than just your mother and your cousin, to maybe look at it as women dealing with their body imagery when their body's being ravaged by this disease. And to be honest, as a viewer, it's not really so relevant to me that these are family members. That doesn't come across to me so much as they're people who, well, you care about, but are also, just individually suffering with these issues and overcoming them in their own ways. And I think you could find other people who you might be able to focus on that would have the same challenges, and you can make equally as compelling photographs. And then that might become a book eventually if you can do a series of those.
Harder to be as intimate with people who you're not as close to as you are in the family. But
I was thinking that, like, it's, it's really not that easy to go out to, I mean, it can be done, but it's not this, I think what makes this so special is that it comes through that this is very personal, but to go to, and she's in the home, you know what I mean? Like, but to go out to and ask people that you don't know, it can be done, but you really have, it's not that, it wouldn't be as easy as, and this wasn't even easy, as she said, right? This wasn't even easy, which was my first thought when I saw it. Wow, that they really let you do this.
But that it is harder, but that would be the difference between, I mean, that's where the great photography happens, is the overcoming that challenge of what is hard and finding a way of creating intimate images like these, perhaps in circumstances where you're not as familiar with the people.
Yeah, it's a great challenge.
No, it's a point well taken that I guess I wasn't really grasping when I made the comments. I'm thinking about other work on the SDN website about either people dealing with old age or with cancer, and almost invariably they're family members. I can't think of too many situations where they're not, for all the obvious reasons.
You could go to a nursing home, and see if something like that, and see if you could photograph a lot of people in one area and get to know, and if you got permission to do that.
Margaret, is that something that you're thinking about doing, or is that something you're saying to yourself, nope, this is a project that was for my family?
So honestly, as I was getting ready to get on to this platform with all of you, I was thinking about this question, like, what would I do with this work? and where would I go with it? And I started to think about companies such as like Dove, who has made a social conscious change, and trying to see if maybe these images could speak to that market of trying to change the perception of what is beautiful and how we address the beauty rituals. It's not just about, being pretty to go to the bar or go out to dinner with your husband. I also thought of maybe approaching a place like Gilda's Club. And maybe that's a good avenue now that you bring up like a nursing home to try to lure people into maybe being involved in being photographed.
You're still in the makeup business, right?
I am still in the cosmetics, yeah.
You have a whole world of right there. I mean, you could create all kinds of exhibitions. I mean, all kinds of photo essays on the people that you come in contact with on a regular basis. It doesn't have to be this exactly, but there's probably all kinds of possibilities within that.
Yeah.
Well, so actually, this is a good question that I have for you, Glenn and Lisa as well. So there's that writer adage that you write what you know, right? Can I assume that pertains to photography as well? That you should delve into subjects that are close to you. Are those the best documentary project? Is that something that works?
It's such an interesting question, Jeff, because people struggle with this all the time. It's certainly not an absolute answer to that, but it's certainly a place that anybody should consider beginning their work, what they know. But what's beautiful about photography and what people love about it is allows them to explore things they don't know as well. But that's where it becomes complicated, in that it behooves anybody that's going to explore something that's not their community to learn about what that community is that they're going to explore, that they really need to get to know it if it's not their own family or their own community. And I think that's where a lot of photographers and documentary photographers fall short, is that they go off into other places without really understanding the people and these places. So yeah, write what you know, but it doesn't mean that you can't learn new places and new things.
Right, Jared, that was really well said. Thank you. So I guess Lisa and perhaps Margaret as well, do you have any just last thoughts of what we've talked about? Any sort of reactions to the discussion?
I just wanted to comment. I walked out of the room, so I didn't hear everything Glenn said, but in regards,
it was brilliant.
Yeah, it's kind of sounded that way on the way out and in the room. But just in regards to, like, should you shoot what you know? I think there's a lot of value in exploration. So as a I mean, that's why I'm a photographer. It's like, it's one of the reasons why I'm a photographer. It allows me to go out and explore many different places. I mean, if I go to a foreign country or a different state, I'm gonna, I would want to go and explore. So I would, but there are a lot of advantages to sticking with what you know, because there's some great work, like that, like Jamal Shabazz is a perfect example, where he shot everything in his neighborhood, and that has such tremendous value and historical value, and it definitely is a perfect example of like shooting what you know. So there's advantages to both, depending on who you are.
And Lisa does that really well. She shoots a lot of things that she doesn't know, but she gets to know them, and she provides a lot of information in her galleries.
I would go anywhere. I mean, I would, as a photographer, I would shoot. As a photojournalist, I'm not saying I would go anywhere, but that's the exciting part about it, is going out and shooting things and seeing things you haven't shot. I wouldn't want to just shoot, let's say Chelsea, and only shoot Chelsea, or, but then, you know what I mean? But it could be a series.
Yep. Listen, thank you all for the conversation. And And Margaret, thank you for joining us and showing your work. It was a pleasure to watch, to look at, and to discuss. And I always try to be thankful for recognizing that it's a challenge to put yourself out there in front of the world to see. I do encourage our viewers, if you have input and thoughtful input for Margaret, then put that in the comments section. And if you are looking to participate in the Crit House, then I would encourage you to go to our website. There is a participation page where you can register to join us. In the future, we'll be taking a look at book projects as well as landscape, and we're looking for photographers in those areas, as well as portraits as well. So please join us. We'd love to be able to show your work. We are going to be sharing a video from the Social Documentary Network, the Photographing Black Lives Matter, How Photography is Contributing to the Movement for Social Justice. Great video that will show some of the work from these good folks at the Social Documentary Network. Glenn and Lisa, thanks you so much for joining us. And for everybody watching, thank you for watching the Crit House.